This video is called The Classic WoW Quit Moment by Willie. You guys know it. It always happens. It always happens. WoW is the greatest game of all time. Don't get it twisted, but this always happens. So let's take a look.
Is that moment when you finally had enough. You exit out of a game and sometimes you don't come back. For many games, it's often tied to some kind of feeling of anger or frustration, which is of course rage quitting, whether that being Alt F4ing out of a Souls-like game after failing a boss for a dozenth time, closing League of Legends after having an evening of questionable teammates, or...
That's never happened to me. Yeah, like I've never actually done that. Like, yeah.
Quitting Marvel Rivals after you face that OP metacomp one too many times in a row. A lot of games have these quit moments, and MMOs do as well. But unlike those aforementioned...
Okay, I take that back, bro. Some of you guys will remember back in Warlords of Draenor. It was one of the only times I took a break from WoW was in Warlords. I took 3 breaks in Warlords, 1 each season, and I remember the moment, man. I was playing Rogue Mage 2s with Sam Westcott, my main rogue at the time in 2s. We fought a Pally Hunter. Tiger's Peak Arena. We CC the Pally on the opener. We pop everything on the Hunter. Hunter takes 0 damage. I'm dead to the Hunter pet because it's a BM Hunter. The Pally's in a sheep. The Hunter is stunned with my rogue and I blasting him, and I'm dead because the Hunter pet killed me during our go. I rage quit there. I'm still mad. It's been 10 years. I'm still mad. I can't believe that happened. Oh my gosh. I'm still mad, bro. I'm still mad.
Titles, quitting in an MMO is rarely an explosive moment of rage or something suddenly snapping. It's a slow and gradual grind to a stop where you realize, I don't really know what I want to log in for today. Now, reaching this personal point of completion in an open-ended game such as an MMO, however, is natural, and it should be possible to some extent for a wide range of players. After all, by their nature, MMOs usually keep progressing so long as they are successful and are adding new patches. So plenty of people give it a go after they see there's something new, they play the patch for a bit, they cancel their sub, and they wait for the next patch to come around. Gaming as a whole has gotten a whole lot more seasonal over the past few years, and this has also crept into the typically loyal MMO player bases as well. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the phrase tossed around for the likes of RuneScape or WoW that you never really quit, you only take breaks. Sometimes those breaks are weeks, sometimes they are years, but eventually you'll decide to give it another go. But I've been someone that's followed WoW pretty closely now for quite a few years, and the amount of times that you see questions asked for, should I get back into, or is it too late to start for Classic, has always been on the high end, and significantly higher than, say, modern WoW, for instance. And I think that's happening for a reason which isn't talked about all that much either. Okay. People are reaching their quit point in classic WoW games sooner and in larger numbers than I think ordinarily you would playing an MMORPG. Okay. And this is a problem which has existed in vanilla.
People think video's too loud. Let me turn it down by like 20%.
BBC, Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, Season of Mastery, and even Season of Discovery to a certain degree, but Blizzard have started to do something about it. In fact, Mr. Pandaria is genuinely the first expansion in World of Warcraft where Blizzard made a serious effort to actually build content, which slowed down the speed at which players reach their quit point. And this quit point in MMOs is simple. You just run out of stuff to do. And the biggest moment when people gradually start to fade away from the game is when they hit a raid log status, meaning simply you're logging in to complete whichever raids are active at the moment, and after that you log off for the week and don't really log in otherwise. Again though, much like reaching a personal point of conclusion in an MMO, raid logging isn't inherently a bad thing. If you love your raids and you want to play several characters and do them each week, then that's a great way to play the game, and it has been since Classic WoW dropped in 2019. It's just, if you wanted to say, log in and do something on your main, quite often during these classic games, there really isn't much else to do.
You know, I was having like an aha moment over the weekend. I was watching my son play with like his trucks, and he has like a little trash truck, and he was like pushing it around and then just like taking it to the kitchen and back to his playroom, and then ran it over to his room and then back. And I was thinking like, oh man, that's so cute. Like, he doesn't have a reason for doing these things. He's just doing them because he wants to. It's not like there's any end goal for like, oh, I need to go take the trash to the kitchen, or I need to take my trash truck to my bedroom. You're just doing it because, well, he wanted to and he thought it was fun. And then I was thinking of us at 12 years old playing WoW. Right? We would just go to Westfall and hang out because we wanted to. It's like run off the beach, you know, like we're gonna go back to Stormwind and just run around the city because you wanted to. There wasn't any like end goal or purpose behind it. You just do it because you wanted to. And I think one of the biggest reasons is because we were kids then. We literally had a different like brain chemistry going on, right? We were kids. It was like, oh, I'm just gonna do this because I want to and it's fun. And there was like no other like, I'm not trying to level, I'm not trying to rush, whatever. But like when we become adults and we're like, you know, there's real life, you have maybe a more precious experience on like what time means. So it's like, okay, I have an hour and a half to play, or I have 2.5 hours to play, and you're like just more self-aware of like, okay, this time is ticking, let me actually do something meaningful to get me closer to one of the goals that I have, right? And we just learn this as we get older, when we get jobs, we go to work, like all these things. And it's like, yeah, when we were kids, we had none of that. You just logged in and did what you want to do, right? It was like ignorance is bliss, right? You're just a kid and you're just playing with your trucks, you know? And anyway, I think that was one of the biggest things like that, when people are like, oh, wow, gaming is ruined these days. And it's like, really, like, we're just older. It's like a really, really big part of it. And when we were kids, it, like, you just had no like agenda or like time frames or like awareness about agendas or time frames. So you kind of just logged in and messed around, you know?
Apart from raid log, and I don't think that's playing into the strength of what the MMO genre can typically provide. It's not surprising that things have ended up being this way after all. Classic games do not work how MMOs should do. You aren't supposed to know all the content that's coming in advance, and to have features that will be in the final patch from day one, or to have a good understanding of class balance before the game even releases. Imagine if WoW Midnight came out, people simmed the classes and found out the best specs, and Blizzard said, yeah, so we're just not gonna change this ever, I guess, have fun. I don't think that would go down particularly well, but that's how it works in Classic. And it's also worth bringing up here somewhere in the video, I don't think a sizable number of people are hitting their quit points mainly because of nostalgia wearing out. I mean, sure, these are re-releases of games, they always have an element of nostalgia to them, but if you're reaching level cap, let alone raid log status, you've invested some serious time into the game. Nostalgia, I think, really only gets your foot in the door and to start playing. What keeps you playing is it's just a good game. So why are people hitting this quit point where they run out of reasons to log in Vanilla Classic? Well, we can take a look at our current anniversary realms for a case study on how WoW Classic realms have played out time and again for many years. It's a slow start where the hardcore players get to 60 very fast because they get ahead of the pack and then they grind dungeons non-stop, so as a result there are very few raiders early on. As Molten Core becomes available, you see a rise in the player base week on week as more people hit level cap and are able to hop into the endgame content within Classic WoW. This happens because leveling simply takes a really long time. It's not unreasonable for level 60 to take people multiple weeks of grinding, if not months, depending on your free time. BWL then drops, and this is the peak moment for Classic raiding. It's enough time post-launch for a sizable number of players to have hit 60, and it's a new raid with amazing loot for people to get excited about. And so the Blackwing Lair release week nearly always sees the largest volume of players in Classic in raiding. From here on out, new raids...
Is that true? Blackwing Lair? It's a bigger release week than Molten Core? Just because more people are at 60 by the time BWL launches? People are saying yes, but I feel like that's crazy. Is that actually true? So here's rating data on anniversary. I guess I wouldn't know exactly which week MC released versus BWL. Huh. Everyone in the chat is saying that's true, but I feel like the rating numbers in Molten Core would be higher, but maybe I'm just wrong. Or at least that was like my thought process. So like this was 2019. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know exactly which week MC came out and which week BWL came out. If this peak was BWL here, that would like maybe make sense. That is really interesting.
We'll see a bump in players, as we indeed have with ZG, but then there's a decrease in each tier instead of player numbers consistently rising again. After Blackwing Lair, two things also happen. The ranking PvP grind opens up to rank 14, and you have AQ as the next major tier. Now we're gonna save talking PvP for just a little bit later. As for AQ, well, it's not exactly Classic's most popular raid, is it? From having read tons of opinions around raiding in Classic so far, I'd say it's most people's worst raid. I never minded it that much personally, but I think it really depends on how hardcore your guild.
I think AQ is absolutely the worst raid in Classic WoW. Like always really enjoy Naxxramas. Really enjoy Nax. The Molten Core I guess does get old once you're like you have all the loot from it. It's just like you're back. But like dude, AQ is just it is so troll. I mean, it's still fun, but like when you compare it to like BWL or like a quick one like ZG where you just kind of run through, it's like a vibe, or like Nax with like the music and the dialogue and it just feels so epic. It's like AQ is like the one place it's like, I'm not really looking forward to going back, to be honest.
Is, even if you are indeed raiding with a guild, that is. I've personally never pugged AQ, and I think that's why I don't really mind it that much, and believe me, I'm not about to. And AQ 40 is where things really start to take a downwards trend, because you've now been engaged in raiding since Molten Core to Blackwing Lair, there's ranking gear which is just replacing a lot of the upgrades you could have been excited about from raids, and you've been consistently gold farming too. This is where the quit point really starts to hit for a lot of people. This is where the raid log begins. But we can look at the expansions we've had for Classic so far and realize they have extended the endgame beyond just raid and PvP. We've had things such as new reputations or achievements, for example, to try and give people something else to work towards when they're not raiding. But I don't believe a substantial amount of people are focusing on that area of the game. For most—
Is that true? Like, so I've never been an achievement hunter. I've never actually done that like once where I like open up my achievement points and like try to get an achievement. I don't think I've like really ever done that, right? But I feel like a lot of people do. Am I wrong? Like on retail, I'm talking retail here, or I guess like MOP or something. Like whenever it like past the point in which it came out, I feel like a lot of people do. It's not me, but I feel like a lot of people do.
People, I bet the game is about leveling and then eventually getting into raiding. And I think it's natural things have gone in this way because it's, again, something that classic games tend to share. And this is a phrase I even remember hearing back in the day: all roads lead to raid. At level 60, you want to attune for raids. Your prebis is to perform better in raids. You level your professions, in part, to perform better in raids. You gather well buffs for raids. You farm gold for consumables for raids. In vanilla, you even do PvP for raids. And us having had several releases of the fresh version of the game now kind of also—
But why do you raid? But why do you raid? I would say most people raid to get loot. Why do you need loot? Why do you need loot? I would say most people want loot to either impress their friends on the meters or to sit outside the city AFK and have people like drool over their character that's like max progressed, or to own people in PvP in the open world. So I would say that he's right, and all those things lead to raiding, but I think raiding isn't the top. Raiding is because people want to then own other people in PvP or like flex their achievements or flex what they've done in the game, right?
So prove how people do quit more often and earlier in Classic. A lot more people seem to enjoy that first half of the vanilla experience, the leveling, the prebis, starting to raid, gearing up your character, and eventually hitting that raid log status, because that's the direction the game sends you. Then eventually you start to miss the times where there was something to do every hour of every day in the game. And at this point, that's where people start to make ults, so they can have that journey again. But repetition just is not the same as variety. PvP. And with each fresh, the player base, I think, has changed in direction a little bit too. The guy who always played Druid and that was their main class thinks, this time around I want to be on the top of the damage meters, I'm going to be rolling Warrior. Or this time I'll be the guy making groups to hard reserve Dalrens till they drop. Or I'm going to get boosted this time instead of having to level again. Or man, I can't be bothered farming all this gold again. People know the abyss items, they understand the consume meta more, and there's a lot more market inflation as well. And overall, I think a decent amount of players are rushing towards that moment where they quit faster than ever without even realizing it. And honestly, I don't think PvP really helps expand the endgame much beyond that either. Of course, PvP is an important activity that should always be part of Classic, but even with the ranking updates where you only need a certain amount of honor and there's no decay, it just feels lacking. When I say you do PvP to raid in vanilla, that's why I think most people enter Battlegrounds, unfortunate as though it may be. If that's not the case, then I guess people who are rank 14 right now on Anniversary Realms spent 200 hours running down AV purely for the fun of it, or so they can spend even more time in AV now because the other Battlegrounds don't pop because no one wants to play them as their bad honor per hour. And I bet on Anniversary Realms now too that the first wave of rank 14 players are done, you'll see queues start to appear for AV more often, and the game's quality will be drawn out and involve far more turtles because there are just less hardcore players there. And Battlegrounds and PvP in Classic just haven't done much of, well, anything to change, and they honestly haven't aged that well at all. I was a huge PvPer back in the day. Before WoW, I played RuneScape and all I cared about there was PKing. When I swapped over to WoW back then, I'd spend endless hours watching the latest videos on Warcraft movies. I'd have no goal because I'd be constantly respecking to try different builds and just be having fun on a bunch of different classes. Eventually, newer PvP games started to pop up and, in my opinion, took a sizable chunk out of the WoW PvP.
Dude, one of the things that I learned when I started to play League of Legends for the first time was, wow, it's refreshing to play a game that the main focus and the main goal is PvP. I played a mini game my entire life, Arena, right? Which is like a small portion of WoW. And, you know, obviously, since it was a small portion, it wasn't given much attention, much dev time, much love, right? And I'm not like saying that to necessarily hate on the developers because, you know, if you're a developer, you have to partition your time in a way that makes sense. And if something is, you know, a minority of the player base, you can't give it more love than it deserves because you have to, you know, spend your time where it needs to be spent. But what I am saying is playing a game that spent their entire time focusing on PvP, focusing on making it the best it could be. Holy crap. It made me like really like second guess everything because it's like, holy moly. Having said that, WoW PvP is still my favorite form of PvP I've ever played. I love it. Like WoW PvP is special. I'm just going to like alt tab, quickly ban this guy in the chat and then just boom, got him. WoW PvP is special, right? Like it really is. Like the way in which it's kind of like playing the piano, right? It's very, very high APM. You're hitting a lot of keys quickly in sequence, and it's just a really nice flow and a very nice vibe. But obviously, it's a mini game, right?
Player base, such as League of Legends, simply because they offered a much more streamlined path to get into PvP and only had to balance their games solely around that.
Bro, I remember when League first came out, and I've told this story before, but it came out back in like, well, okay, it got popular, started getting popular in what, 2012? And that was like end of Kata, start of Mop-ish. And I remember it came out and I just thought it was so silly. Like as a WoW player, I'm like, look at this game. You click to move and there's 4 buttons. How cute. How silly. And like some of us WoW players, like gladiators or rank 1 players at the time would download it and like just to mess around, like have fun. Like, aw, you just click to move and there's 4 keys. Like this is such a good way to unwind after a long day of WoW arenas. And then like to my surprise, like 3-4 years later, it blows up to be like the biggest esport in the world basically, and WoW is just like in the dumps, and I'm just like what is going on? What is happening, bro?
And alongside these new PvP games came new ways to PvP or different game modes. Even World of Warcraft has embraced this as time went on. League of Legends nowadays, for example, has normal mode, they have ranked solo and duo, they have flex, they have ARAM, and a ton of limited time game modes such as Earth, One for All, Ultimate Spellbook, Nexus Blitz, Doombots, and so many more. We can take this from a WoW perspective too about there being different game modes. Modern WoW has random battlegrounds, epic battlegrounds, 2v2 arena, 3v3 arena, solo shuffle, rated battlegrounds, battleground blitz, and more. Even Marvel Rivals, which is still a pretty new game in the grand scheme of things, has multiple game modes, featuring arcade modes, holiday events, normal games, and ranked. These examples are from 3 different types of games and how they handle PvP, and all 3 do the same thing when it comes to PvP game modes. They have a normal or quick play mode. This is casual, fast to get into PvP. They have a ranked mode. This is where people go to test their skill, improve, and climb ranks. And they have temporary game modes. These change the rules of the game to offer a new perspective.
I mean, retail has all 3 of these, right?
Vanilla World of Warcraft has, and has only ever had, quick play. And quick play for me is when you're really just getting started with a game and familiarizing yourself with it. You want to jump in and see what's up before you get some understanding. And then you go into ranked or try out some temporary game modes whilst they're available. And to be honest, I wouldn't personally play a PvP game for very long if quick play is all it had to offer, except in quick play in Classic WoW.
I mean, I kind of agree. If you want to argue they should add rated battlegrounds into Classic or rated arenas, I mean, there's a lot to talk about there. But I feel like one of the appeals of Classic WoW is that it's sandboxy in its nature. And what I mean by that is like you kind of make your own fun with the PvP. Like I'm gonna go out to Blackrock Mountain, or I'm gonna go out to Stranglethorn Vale and like go to these different world PvP areas and actually like like world PvP, or like try to camp people or farm people or get farmed or whatever. And that's kind of what that was kind of like the whole appeal to Classic WoW PvP. I think rated battlegrounds in Classic Plus could kind of make sense, right? You already have battlegrounds, you add a rating system to it. Now you have a way to progress and actually like play more than just getting your rank 14 or whatever. Like you could actually grind to see who would be the best. I think that would actually be pretty cool. Arenas, though, on the other hand, would be so bad, so imbalanced, unless they redid everything. And I don't know if that's really worth it, mainly because of the way the DR works in Classic WoW with like 20-second DRs. And I think Turtle WoW or Ascension or one of them or both maybe redid the DRs, which then fundamentally changes battlegrounds and other things. So like, I don't even know if that's worth it, and world PvP. But it is an interesting conversation. 1v1 arenas, it was kind of my idea. If you did want to add in arenas to Classic, 1v1s kind of make the most sense because dueling to some degree is really well received. And I mean, it's not like perfectly balanced, like warriors get owned, but it's like okay. The balance is okay. But people just really love dueling. So like a 1v1 arena, you wouldn't have to like change DRs, and it would kind of make sense.
You can get matched versus people in a full pre-made who will proceed to graveyard camp you till they decide to win. Now, as mentioned earlier, Season of Discovery initially started to work towards offering alternatives for Classic's typical endgame experiences. The Battle for Ashenvale and Blood Moon events gave people new ways to PvP for rewards, and though I'm all too aware people are going to understandably feel split on how well these events went, Blizzard at least tried something new for the endgame. So I have to commend them.
I did not like the Ashenvale event in SOD. I find myself missing Blood Moon. Not that Blood Moon was always good. Blood Moon actually usually sucked. But if you guys have ever been in a good Blood Moon, and what I mean by a good Blood Moon, it was no lag. There wasn't too many players where it was super laggy, but it's not like there was no players where you couldn't find anyone, but like just that middle ground amount of players where it was kind of just like this constant brawl. Very fun experience, but it had to be that perfect Blood Moon, right? And most of them sucked, right? Most of them sucked.
For that. Equally, there has been some new non-raid content, such as profession-related quests, new gold farms with player power growth, secret quest lines to uncover, and Konsu to name a few. But this seasonal server has fallen back into the typical old ways of vanilla, where it is very much a raid-centric experience. Then again, it is a seasonal server, and they're not going to have time to focus on fleshing out the content as much as they perhaps would have liked to. So people are having these moments where they quit in Classic, and I think it's down to a lack of options at endgame, both from PvP not keeping players about due to the lack of options, and the rest of the game leading down a road that ends in raiding. And you know what? That is fine. It's fine for Classic Era, and it's fine for the Anniversary rounds, because that is what they are, and that is what they have always been. If you want your No Changes Classic, it is right there, and it's available to go back to at any point in time. But I really hope this isn't all we can expect from Classic games forever, because for a future beyond just being re-releases for Classic, I truly believe the endgame has to offer more varied experiences than it currently does in its base vanilla version. And I am hopeful that Blizzard will deliver on this one day, and that there will be a game called Classic Plus, or something along that line. The things that I've gone over in this video are ultimately problems which I believe Classic Plus must address if it's going to pave a new world for Classic WoW fans to keep enjoying the game long term, rather than us going back to those same quit points that we can observe over years of case studies. Will it mean taking some things from other versions of WoW? Absolutely it will, yes. You know old school RuneScape? The MMO where the recreation has surpassed the game that it was made from? Yeah, that contains literally dozens of updates from RuneScape 2 and 3.
Bro, I've made this claim and people call me crazy, and you know what? Maybe I am crazy and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not saying I'm 100% right here, but I have made the claim that if Classic Plus does it right one day, and it probably wouldn't be for 5 to 10 years, 5 plus minimum, but maybe 5 to 10 years, I could see Classic Plus becoming the most popular version of WoW and overtaking retail. Pitchforks. I could see it. I could really see it. I know. I'm just saying. Maybe I'm wrong, but we saw it with RuneScape. People just love Classic WoW. The biggest moment WoW has pretty much ever seen was that 2019 Classic launch in terms of just public eye, viewership, hype, excitement. That's the biggest moment. But obviously, like this video is saying, the Classic WoW quit moment, people quit. If you actually take out that quit part and it just keeps going forever, I could see 5 to 10 years goes by. We're all 40, 50 or whatever, average WoW players in their 40s. They're going to want to play retail in their 40s, or are they going to want to go back to Classic Plus that has new stuff they haven't seen before, but it's still familiar? I'm saying 5 to 10 years, if they do it right, Classic Plus could be bigger than retail. I know it's a crazy claim to make. I really know that's a crazy claim to make, but I think it's actually in the realm of possibility.
Which have been reskinned and made to fit within the old school world, and people actively voted for them to be added to. Not everything from the future is bad, and I suppose I'll have to answer this question here because I am sure to see it in the comments. Why not play retail if you want things to change? Well, here's a better question. Why not stick to one of the 2 versions of WoW that exist in Era and Anniversary, specifically made to cater to people who don't want changes? But that is about all I have for today. Just a topic which I felt like making a video on for some time, going over some thoughts on how Classic...
The best part about retail is that they're constantly adding in new dungeons and new raids. That's what people want in Classic, but obviously with the Classic, respecting the Classic design and the Classic mentality and not going too far with it. But I think people do want the new content. But that is the best thing about retail. Every new expansion, it's okay, what's new is might as well take a look,
Realms typically play out, and maybe what they could consider changing in the future. So I'll end with a question. What content would you want to see in Classic Plus which expands the end game? Solo shuffle, rated 1v1s, Brawlers Guild, Mage Tower?
Not solo shuffle. Rated 1v1s I think could work. Mage Tower stuff could probably work.
Delves, what do you think it would make sense to add within the game?
Delves,
let me know below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
Alright, there it is, guys. Willie's Classic WoW quit moment. This was a banger of an upload. I don't know how or why I missed this. This was a few months ago, but we're locked in and dialed. Let's give Willie a little thumbs up. Bada bing, bada boom.